overreach with instructing a student to do something or not do something, or with addressing issues, then parents will be like, you have no right to talk to my son, Johnny, that way. He's not really bullying. And you have those issues. The other issue, a large issue, is because so much of the bullying is also happening off school grounds through text messaging, social media, that the schools are setting up their perimeter saying, well, we can only address what happens on school grounds, what happens off of school property. So those text messages, those emails, those Facebook posts, they don't happen here at school. So our policy is school grounds. We can't go beyond that, right? And then you have the parents saying, but you need to address it because that bully is going to your school. And it's just back and forth, like a bad game of ping pong, where everybody's saying, no, it's your responsibility. No, it's over here. No, it's over there. And again, without the juvenile statutes being on the books either to define what is the difference, that this is criminal harassment and now this is a criminal felony terrorist threat, that you're instilling terror in someone. Without those things on the books, then law enforcement can act. And it is a vicious cycle. And it needs to be addressed, and it is weird and baffling, and that's why more bullycides are occurring. And the Centers for Disease Control have said that bullying among kids is becoming a growing health issue. It's a health problem. And there is a direct correlation between bullying and suicide, and there's different studies on that and statistics from the Centers for Disease Control, as well as a Yale University study, which shows that the connection between bullying and suicide, that kids who are bullied are between 2 to 9 times more likely to commit suicide, and that's evident in the kids committing suicide and leaving behind these suicide notes. There's no guessing as to why they kill themselves. They're stating why. And so again, this case that is documented in Bullies and Friends, it took a female prosecutor 6 months to be able to put together charges, because the initial police department said that they found, no crime had been committed. It was like, oh, well, yes, that's a very sad suicide note. That's sad that your daughter hung herself, but no crime's been committed here because she took her own life. Yet those girls, particularly one especially, threatened to kill Dawn Marie and all of that. So it took a regional prosecutor to put together a case to enact and put together the right juvenile law codes that she could put together to then bring charges against the 3 girls named in the suicide note. And the case was highly controversial. There were protesters. The mom of the girl who killed herself, her name is Cindy, and Cindy was actually getting death threats on her phone, on her voicemail. One person even called to tell Cindy, well, your daughter's going to hell because suicide is a sin. And so here's this mom who just lost her daughter, and she's being tormented as well. And it's just sickening.
And I'm sure that, doesn't help with her grieving process, and something that she can, take care of as we do as humans. There's, different phases of the grieving process, but she can't even probably get past the first part of it because she's being threatened and being, how do I put this? It keeps going on. They keep reminding her of what happened.
Right. Absolutely. And even when I went up to film with another, an associate producer, and we went up to film there in Canada, and we had to go up secretly. The family knew, of course, and were assisting us, and because the family wanted to tell this story. I do also want to make that clear. It wasn't like I said, I'm just making this story. I wouldn't have done it unless the family absolutely wanted to, and the mom did. As I said, she was, on the Oprah Winfrey Show, spoke out about it, and her reason is because even though it's hard for her to tell her story, obviously, and all of that, she too felt the same as I did, that if we can save the life of one more child, then it's been worth it. And we know we've already done that with the film, according to what certain kids have told us, so we're very glad of that. But again, it was a difficult thing for her, but she wanted to do that as well. And like I said, even when we went up to film up there, we received threats. And I actually had a high-ranking official with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police who called the location where I was staying at, had found out because it was not advertised, the word got out in a small town. And he called me, and I got on the phone, and that official asked me, what are you doing here? How long will you be staying? We don't want you to make trouble here. Some implied sort of
instead of thanking you. That's
right.
really
and again, it's just that one of the bullies found guilty, her father was a police officer in that town. So it just going toward accountability. I mean, why didn't they just leave it alone? And whether or not I'm there is irrelevant to them being police.
Right.
But, to get that call and that, we'll be monitoring the situation. And when they ask me, who you'll be speaking with, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you who I'm speaking with. But, that's not anything you need to know. I'm a filmmaker, journalist, and I'm going to be interviewing whoever has knowledge of this story, information on this. And he was like, well, but what angle are you going to be reporting on? I'm like, angle? I don't have any angle. I'm here to report the truth. And I'm saying, oh, well, you better not make trouble. And I was like, look, I'm here to tell the truth and report on the truth. And whatever the truth may be and wherever that leads, that's what I'm going to be filming. And that's the story I'm going to be telling. And, of course, we made sure to always drive under the speed limit and all that in our
of course,
rental car. We didn't want to, because it was a pretty remote town as well, actually. But yeah, and when you look at that, again, it's like here you have adults, also bullying. And it is very disturbing. And like we said about accountability and accepting responsibility for what your kid does or what happens, and a lot of times, unfortunately, there's not that, and that's why we've also received additional harassment or whatever, because it was a rather controversial case, and those that supported, I guess you could say, some of the bullies, again, instead of holding the bullies accountable, they were more like, well, it wasn't their fault that girl killed herself. When it's like, really, it wasn't your child, and your son or daughter didn't list these kids in a suicide note, and your child wasn't told, we're going to kill you and they're not going to find your body. So
that's just unreal. I just hate that this is happening, and I'm thankful there's people like you out there that are willing to educate our society and our children and try to help them become adults and good adults, whether they're on the side of the bully or the other side of being bullied. Now, one question I had before I go into the crowdfunding campaign is, what clues or what are some of the clues that a parent should look for that their child is being bullied?
Great question. Some of the clues are weight loss or weight gain. So, weight change, weight difference. If your son or daughter suddenly doesn't want to go to school, right, big red flag. It's not just about, it is not just about maybe that chemistry test they don't want to take. It's about much more than that, usually. So that's a huge red flag. When your son or daughter, suddenly their group of friends changes or their best friend changes, and that comes, too, from always checking in with your kids, like really checking in with them. Like, who's your best friend and why is that person your best friend and how is your best friend? And then If something like that suddenly changes, that's a definite sign. If your son or daughter becomes more withdrawn, they just want to go to their room. If, for instance, maybe they don't want to get on the computer, or if they're spending more time on the computer. And then, of course, one could say, well, their behavior, any drug usage or alcohol, but really, if someone's being bullied, there are other signs to look for prior to that are going to happen. So, again, if it's someone being withdrawn, that their friends change, that they don't want to go out, they don't go to social parties anymore. Maybe they were in a club or a sports team. Suddenly they're like, I don't want to be on that anymore. Again, definite red flags, a change in their grades. If a teacher calls and says there are things going on, if that should happen, those are all definite things to look for, and to talk to your kid about it. And like when I talk at events or parents groups about it, I'll say to parents, it's not enough to come home and say, did you have a good day at school?
Right.
Which only elicits, right, the yes or no answer. Or, it asks those open-ended questions. Like, what was your favorite thing that happened at school today and why? What was the least favorite thing that happened today and why? Things like that. Why is this person your best friend, and how are things going? Are there any issues? And then talking to them about bullying, because it happens at such a young age, that as soon as a parent feels that their child is aware and can deal with these issues, whether it's 7 or 8 years old or 9 years old, it doesn't need to be full on, but just in dialogue that they'll understand, that they can relate to what you're saying, just as a fact of self-esteem, explaining to them, if anyone picks on you for any reason, whether the color of your skin, your height, your weight, whatever your clothes that you wear, whatever it may be, to know that that person saying that to you is actually insecure. They're the one with the issue. They're the one that has a jealousy issue, insecurity, whatever it is. The point being that you are not the issue, and you are great, and you are wonderful, and also to know that, to tell your child that they can come to you at any time for any reason, and that you'll understand and listen and be there to support them. And while sometimes that seems like such a basic thing to say, and so many great parents know that, it's just that sometimes parents will get so busy with, and rightfully so, they'll be like, well, I have to keep a roof over their head, I have to pay the bills, and, food on the table, and all that.
They have more than one child. I mean,
right.
So, yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I wanted to point out, though, is we've always told our children that they could come to us with whatever, issue or whatever they want to talk about, or if they have a question about something. We've always done that, and I have 4 children. We as parents hope and dream that our children will come to us if they have a problem. If they've done something wrong, don't be afraid. Of course, we're going to be upset in the beginning, but it's not that we don't love you less, and we're going to help you, get through whatever is going on in your life. But a lot of times the kids don't do it. As I said with my son, he ended up opening up to a social worker at school. And I think it's because sometimes parents do not know how to ask the question the right way. But my son is also very close with our family doctor, who we've had, my son is 17 now, we've had for over 20 years. And he's another person that I would suggest a doctor, it doesn't even have to be a psychologist, be a family doctor, bring him to the doctor and say, well, we're going for a checkup. And then, tell the doctor ahead of time what's going on, that you think there's something wrong, and maybe that person can get the truth out of them. So never stop.
Absolutely.
Never stop trying to find out what the issue is. If you really believe that there's something going on and they're not talking to you about it, find a person that they will talk to.
Right. Absolutely. That's a perfect example, and that's a great recommendation. And that's something that I tell parents as well. I go, as long as it's a trusted adult and someone you know, and then get feedback from them and